Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for clicking this video if you're new here. So I was thinking about the Vanity Fair, okay, I was thinking about the Harper's Bazaar interview that just came out with Meghan Markle, and I was thinking about Derek Zoolander because I was talking about Meghan with my friend, and I was telling her, because I didn't know if she'd seen Zoolander before, because she's not from America, but she has seen it, and I was saying that Zoolander, if you've never seen it, is a model in a comedy movie about the modeling industry, and he's a high fashion runway model, supermodel, and he is very stupid, right? But at the same time, every single modeling look that he has is the same exact look, and he has different names for them: Blue Steel, Le Tigre, and he was working on one called Magnum, and they were literally all the same exact expression. And there's a character in the movie named Magatu who says that every single look is the same look, and he said he feels like he's taking crazy pills because everyone acts like Derek's different facial expressions are different, but they're literally the same look. And I was telling her about how every single thing Meghan does is exactly the same thing over and over and over, and I even made a little collage about how Meghan always thinks she's reinventing herself. And my friend initially thought that Meghan was re-wearing her clothes, but literally every single time she does a photo shoot with a white button up, it's a different shirt. And she thinks that because she's putting her hair in a slick bun and wearing no makeup and wearing Balenciaga, that we see her in a different light. Because I said, you cannot think normally like normal people think. You have to think of the mind of someone like Meghan. When superstars reinvent themselves, remember Rihanna, she came out as a reggae pop, cute, pretty, sexy singer, who was singing upbeat music, and then she had the Chris Brown incident, but she used that to reinvent herself, chopped her hair off, dyed it jet black, changed her image into a more edgy, punkish influenced style, right? The music, the sound changed, everything changed, the whole look was completely different. Okay, so that's what singers do. But Meghan thinks that she's Clark Kent, that she can wear a white button-up shirt, be in the garden, and she's a trad wife, she's ballerina farm, and then she wears a white button-up shirt that happens to be totem, and she's with a gray backdrop, and she thinks we're like, oh my god, bro, she's high fashion. You don't look high fashion. Why don't you get a wig? Literally put the hair away, get a pixie cut wig, get a bob wig, do something different, do your makeup all black, eyeshadow with the smear, wear like a croc print jacket and a sheer top inside, something different that we're like, oh, that's Meghan, like oh, is that her? In a good way, like, oh, we don't recognize you because you actually look different. So I thought about her interviews, because every single interview is the exact same interview over again, and I decided, let me see if I can find the magazine, like written interviews, because if we do the words, it's over and over and over. But let's see if we can do the written magazines and interviews and see if she's still talking about the same things that she's talking about now. So I found her very first interview, one of her very first interviews in May of 2012. Okay, so I go through the archives, okay, but thankfully her fans have literally saved and archived everything, so, and they've linked everything, so it didn't take me that long to find this. I'm gonna read one of her first interviews from 2012. Okay, all right, it says, and it's with this publication called Female First. It says, Meghan Markle is currently whipping up a storm as Rachel Zane in the U.S. comedy drama Suits, which is out now on DVD. I caught up with the actress to talk about the opening series of the show, what attracted her to the role, and what lies ahead in season 2. Suits season 1 has just been released on DVD here in the UK, so for anyone who missed the show when it was on TV, can you tell me a little bit about it? And Meghan says, the show is based on the idea that this one guy has a legal mind, and the show was actually called A Legal Mind before it was renamed to Suits. And Mike Ross is the character who's a Mensa of sorts, but is a little rough around the edges. He ends up working at a law firm even though he's not a lawyer. The first series follows his relationship with Harvey Specter, who's one of the most prominent lawyers in Manhattan, and how Mike Ross is trying to keep the secret of not truly being a lawyer, but having the mind of one and trying to find his way in this world. And of course, with the help of many characters, in the show, but especially my character, Rachel Zane. He finds an ally, and together they work through many of these cases. And of course, there's a lot of interest in all that. So it's fun, and season 2 is even better. And the interviewer says, you take on the role of Rachel Zane in the series, so what was it about this character that really drew you to the script? And Meghan says, when I first read the script, I loved that the writers had not just for Rachel, but for female characters in general, that this show made them very layered and all very strong. Rachel Zane is written as a character that has this encyclopedic knowledge of the law, and she's a paralegal with the Achilles heel of not being able to test well. In many ways, I love that she had this fatal flaw and that she has an incredible value at this firm, and realizing that it's with her intelligence and with her savvy, she's the only paralegal that I can think of in TV who has an incredible office, laughs in parentheses, but it's because they value Rachel so highly that even though she's not an associate. So I was drawn to how many nuances that I could find in her, and then also being part of a love interest that I think could become something really special for TV. And the interviewer says, well, you've touched on my next question, really. Rachel is such a strong and feisty, and I was wondering how much that was a draw for you. And Meghan says, I loved how strong she is, and that for most actresses it's a challenge these days because many writers will just create a female character that's just the cute of the wife or just the girlfriend. And to be able to have those elements of being cute and charming is fine, but I think the draw is to be able to play someone who has dimension and a level of strength. Before I started acting, I used to work at the U.S. Embassy, and I always loved the power play that was involved in politics and certainly within an office. And I think that being able to watch a woman hold her own, and at least in the case of Suits, be able to throw Mike Ross a thing or two. I believe that there's a scene in episode 6 or 7, there's a scene where Rachel goes head to head with Louis Litt, and you get to see that she's young, but she's incredibly smart, driven, and ambitious. And I think that's a great role model for women. And for me as an actress, it's a pleasure to be able to bring that to life. And the interviewer says, so how do we see her develop throughout the season? And basically, Meghan, in her very early interviews, she just talked about being an actress and being on Suits, right? She does not talk about all of these personal gripes. She doesn't talk about, and then I found one from October 31st, 2016, which is when the story of her and Harry broke the dating, but I'm gonna just read it. But she's not talking about all of this, oh, I'm a woman and I'm biracial and it's hard and people treat me bad and woo. She's just like, oh, I'm happy to be here and this is the main topic, which is me being an actress on the show Suits, because that's all that she had going for her, right? This is the other interview was before the take, so all she could talk about, her only real claim to fame was being Rachel from Suits, so, which it still is, but anyways, this is from 2016, so let's see if she's talking about being harassed by the paparazzi or whatever she talks about now, okay? And this is from Good Housekeeping. Actress Meghan Markle is a real-life girl boss. And this was 2016, so this was the girl boss era, okay? And so it says, we took the actress out of the boardroom. She plays paralegal Rachel Zane on Suits back July 13th on USA for a 6th season to chat about her love of snail mail, work wardrobe essentials, and her lifestyle website, The Tig. And make sure to check out Meghan modeling some great summer looks. And the interviewer first asks, what is The Tig? And she says, I see The Tig as a conversation between girlfriends. I love connecting with the fan base and sharing my experiences. There's so much snarky stuff on the internet these days, so I've tried to create a space that's really positive and hopefully inspires you to do something that's uplifting and empowering. But she didn't say that, oh, it's a lifestyle blog where I talk about places to eat, places to be seen, my favorite ththings to shop. You can shop my closet, you can whatever, because 2016 was the era also of the blogger, right? Influencing was not really, the term influencer was not really there yet. So in 2016, it was still very much the era of the fashion blogger, you know, the Alexa Chungs of the world and all of the other fashion bloggers out there, you know, so she didn't even talk about what the blog was, which is odd to me. She says it's a conversation between girlfriends, so why is it a website? That doesn't make sense. Okay, anyways, they ask, are you married to the power suit? And she says, my wardrobe for suits isn't like working girl. Dressing for work doesn't have to be so on the nose these days. The key is to have your own point of view and to be attached to it. Personally, I love crop pants in vegan leather, a great fitted blazer, and a button down. Do you have any hidden talents? I used to be a calligrapher for weddings and events, and that was my side job while I was auditioning. I think handwritten notes are a lost art form. When I booked my first pilot, my dad wrote me a letter that I still have. The idea of someone taking the time to put pen to paper is really special. Do you cook? There's nothing as delicious or as impressive as a perfectly roasted chicken. If you have an in a garden level roasted chicken recipe, it's a game changer. I bring that to dinner parties and make a lot of friends. And that was the end of the interview. No gripes, no complaints, nothing bad. Literally nothing bad. And here is from Best Health magazine. This is from fall of 2015. And again, this is pre-Harry. This was an interview done at Soho House in Toronto. And they said, okay, for our May 2016 cover story, Markle and I caught up a few times to chat about all things life and wellness, blah, blah, blah. And again, this is before anyone knew she was dating Harry, okay? So this is May 2016. Even though they said they met fall of 2015. But anyways, you spent a lot of time in Toronto filming Suits since the show premiered in 2011. What do you love most about the city? She says, Toronto's like my home. On the onset, I didn't know what to expect, but everyone has been so welcoming. The people are so kind, and I love the food scene, and I really love exploring little nooks around the city with my 2 dogs. Markle has 2 rescue dogs, Bogart and Guy, and it was actually Ellen DeGeneres who convinced her to adopt. We'll explore the new ravines and jaunt through new areas. I love how much green space there is tucked away. You wouldn't expect that, and it reminds me of LA in a lot of ways. What do you do to stay in shape? Is there any workout or activity you do regularly? Yoga is my thing. My mom is a yoga instructor, and I started doing mommy and me yoga with her when I was 7. I was very resistant as a kid, but she said, Flower, you'll find your practice. Just give it time. In college, I started doing it more regularly. I used to run all the time, but I typically get picked up for work at 4:15 in the morning on a Monday, so there isn't much time for jogging, and I would rather have that extra hour of sleep. Now I change it up. I'll do yoga a couple times a week, hot yoga specifically, with Duncan Parvinian. He's so positive, and especially in my industry, it's so important to surround yourself with people who are grounded and really optimistic. As I've gotten older, running has become hard on my knees, so I can't run outside the way that I used to, but I'm still planning to run a marathon. In 2015, how old was she? 34? 35? Okay. Is Flower a nickname from your mom? Did I say that? How funny. Yes, my mom calls me Flower. She's always called me Flower. It's really funny because I don't even think about it when I'm describing how we chat. As you get older, how are your health and wellness priorities shifting? As I'm getting older, my approach to aging is quite different. I make sure that I take care of my skin and body, especially with the work hours I have. And I don't just take care of myself for aesthetic reasons, but because how I feel is dictated by what I'm eating, how much rest I'm getting, and how much water I'm drinking. If I don't have time for a long workout, I'll grab my dog and go out for a quick run. Being active is my own moving meditation. Didn't she just say that she can't run the way she used to? So she does yoga because it's hard on her knees? Are you a foodie? How did you cultivate your passion for food? I love to cook. I grew up on the set of a TV show called Married with Children where my dad was the lighting director. Because of the content of the show, my dad would have me help in craft services, which is where they make all the food and nibbles. And that's where I started to learn about garnishing and plating. After being there after school for 10 years and seeing the appreciation of food, I started to learn the association between food and happiness and being able to entertain. I think that's where the seed was planted. Beyond that, we traveled a lot when I was young. My mom was also a travel agent, so with the exposure to many different cultures and different flavors, with being in LA being such a melting pot, much like Toronto, I think that all developed my fascination for food. So you notice how here she's mentioning her dad, how she grew up on the set of a TV show, about how she learned about plating and garnishing because of being on the set of the TV show where they obviously cater for the cast. She's not talking about how now in Harper's Bazaar, she talked about how she grew up with her mom and her grandma, not her dad. She doesn't act like her dad even existed. She talks about how she learned about food from her grandmother because her mom didn't cook. And about how her mom was a travel agent, so they went to different places and learned about food. Okay, she does do the travel agent story, right? But she makes it seem like her parents were together and how her dad raised her for 10 years. But in this other story, now in her life, she grew up in the hood with black people, with the LA riots, and now it's the story has changed. Okay, and so they said, what's your healthy eating philosophy? Do you have a kryptonite? French fries. I could eat French fries all day, and I love pasta. I love carbs. Who doesn't love a carbohydrate? But of course, when I'm filming, I'm conscious of what I try to eat. I try to eat vegan during the week, and then I have a little more flexibility with what I dig in on the weekends. And at the same time, it's all about balance, because I work out the way I do. I don't ever feel deprived. I feel the second you do what? I feel that the second you do that is when you start to binge on things. It's not a diet, it's lifestyle eating. The same goes for wine. Of course, I'm going to have that glass of wine. It's delicious and I enjoy it. Do the things you enjoy within reason. Know your body and know it works for you, and you'll be fine. The TIG also covered travel, lifestyle, fashion, and beauty. How did you come up with the concept? The concept was really to have a hub for all the things I find exciting. There's no strategy to it, which is perhaps the reason for its success. It just organically comes from me when about the things that I want to share. I think the think pieces I write about empower the self and sorry guys. The think pieces I write about empowerment and self-identification are the real heart of the site. Maybe readers come to the site because they're in search of the perfect blowout, but they end up walking away from it thinking, I'm enough. Wow, that's a great reminder. For me, that's been the real joy. It's great that they like my clothes or my hairstyle, but at the end of the day, when all that stuff is gone, let's talk about what's really important. Thankfully, the TIG is an outlet for me to start that conversation candidly. What does your perfect day look like? I love to work, to be honest. On my perfect day, I would wake up late, take my dogs for a walk, do some yoga, and have a great sashimi lunch. And because I love to work, if I was able to go and shoot one scene, then that would be fantastic for a little creative impulse. Then I'd have a really great dinner with friends. I love to cook. I'm pretty low-key. I travel so much that in my downtime, I really relish the quiet. What's next for you? Do you have some bucket list items? We're confirmed to film 2 more seasons of Suits, so I'll be there in Toronto for at least a couple more years. And that's really the hiatus between filming is so brief that I just want to use that time to grow the TIG. I'm so grateful for how it's taken off, and I love doing comedy. In the winter of 2016, Markle filmed a romantic comedy in Vancouver. Other bucket list items: I want to travel more, and I can't wait to start a family, but in due time. So she can't wait to start a family, but with who? Right? Because she doesn't mention a partner or a boyfriend, nothing like that, right? Okay, and this is before she met Harry, right? She doesn't mention Corey or anything like that, all right? So now we have 2 interviews where we're showing how Meghan didn't have any of these complaints and gripes. You have the very first, one of the first interviews that she's ever done in May 2012. And then let's see. And I'm trying not to do the video interviews because it's a lot. I want to see the written interviews to see if she was, what she was talking about back then. Like, you know, the types of things she would be talking about. Okay. And the annoying part is that a lot of these interviews, when you try to click the link, they've been kind of scrubbed, which is kind of weird. But okay, there is one from 2014, and then I'm gonna go to the most recent ones. Okay, this is from Allure magazine from July 21st, 2014. Again, this is 2 years before Harry, allegedly, but then, you know, they updated it in December 2017 so that it would be more like oh my god, she's engaged to Harry, let's get more traffic on the website. Okay, but this is from 2014. On USA Suits, Meghan Markle plays smart, driven, almost lawyer Rachel Zane. In real life, the actress is a bit more laid back. I spoke to her about her beauty routine, her new lifestyle website, and her travel must-haves, because this is 2014 when she first started the take, okay? And they said, what's your beauty routine? She says, I play around. I love Jan Marini skincare products. I've been using their serum lately. It's a nice glycolic one that makes your acid really glowy. And I love the Tatcha rice enzyme powder. It just sort of foams around on your face and gives you a really subtle exfoliation. I also use Revitalash on my eyelashes, and I swear they're as long as they could ever be. Okay, so nothing bad, nothing complaining, nothing about, oh, you know, I'm biracial and it's so hard for me to find a foundation and the beauty industry is just so racist. Nothing crazy like that. She hasn't been complaining in any of these interviews, right? What are your must-have makeup products? We've used the same things during the past few seasons on Suits, and it's been great to have access to these really cool products and see what works. I love NARS Blush and Orgasm. Yes, that's the name of the shade. That is the name of the shade, okay? I use it on and off camera because it gives you a nice glow from within. My favorite mascara is Dior Show Iconic, and I love the Makeup Forever HD powder. It lets your skin look really shiny and fresh, but not greasy shiny. How does your look differ from your characters? I'm so much more low-key in real life. She's so polished, and it's in HD, so the steps that go into looking good on the show are really different than in real life. I don't wear foundation in real life. My routine is very simple. I call it the 5-minute face. It's this touche éclat, which is from YSL. Curled lashes, mascara, chapstick, and a bit of blush. That's my favorite kind of look. If I'm gonna amp it up for a night, then I use MAC Teddy eyeliner, which is really beautiful. A really beautiful brand that has some gold in it. A makeup artist I work with very often, Kayleen McAdams, turned me on to it. That's what she uses on Sofia Vergara, and who wouldn't want those gorgeous brown almond eyes? She doesn't talk about Daniel Martin, okay? I love your lifestyle site, The Tig. Tell me how you came up with it. The Tig has been sort of swirling in my mind for years as something that I wanted to do. My mom was a travel agent, so off the beaten path travel has always been a big part of my life. How is going to Mexico off the beaten path? Okay, but anyways, and growing up in California, farm-to-table dining was something that I experienced. How is that when you said you grew up in the hood with your grandma? Okay. Anyways, I'm the person friends come to when they want to find the perfect restaurant or boutique hotel on the outskirts of Paris. As opposed to scouring the internet for a travel guide, wouldn't you rather ask the people who are really cool who go there? Wow, okay. That's what I do. So I wanted to get all of that and put it together on one site. What does the name mean? It's named after a wine called Tignanello. I had a sip of it 6 years ago, and it was my first aha moment. You spend years going, oh, I'll just have red or white. I don't really know what the difference is. But then one day you take a sip of something you like, I get it. And you're like, I get it. So the Tig became this personal idea of getting it. Fashion, travel, beauty, all of it. What are some of your favorite things featured on the site? My heart really is in the travel and food stuff. Sorry. We have a feature called Chef Talks. That's where she interviewed Corey. We talked to a chef to understand why they conceive of a plate the way they do. It's the same thing with a fashion feature I'm doing called Anatomy of Design. It's about understanding the designer's mind for a collection. I love getting into people's brains and understanding the creative impetus for something. That's really the fun part of the site, figuring out the why of it all and being able to have another aha moment. Given your love of travel, how often do you travel for work, and what's your best travel tip? What do you always bring with you? I can tell you the most honest answer because I literally just got off a plane yesterday after a 5-hour flight, and I leave tomorrow to go to Toronto. The one thing I cannot live without when I'm traveling is a small container of tea tree oil. It's not the most glamorous thing, but if you have a cut, a mosquito bite, or a small breakout, no matter what it is, it's my little cure-all. It's inexpensive, small enough to carry on, and I bring it with me all the time. And that was it. Okay, no complaints, no gripes, no nothing. Literally nothing bad, nothing, oh, the world hates me, oh, this and this and this. Okay. And so we've done 2012. We've done 2012, all of these other things, and we don't have anything bad. We don't have anything negative. Her life seemed to be fine, you know? Okay, and let's see. I just found something a little interesting. Let's see if this works. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of these things literally no longer work. A lot of these links somehow are defunct. And I don't know if it's because when she I don't know if it's when she, you know, became royal or whatever, she was just like, oh, delete all this stuff, I don't want you guys to run it. I don't know what, but somehow all of this stuff doesn't work anymore. But I'm gonna read this last one before we get to her complaining and griping and all of these things. But you keep seeing that in these previous interviews before Harry, it was just, oh, I'm the fun California girl, yeah, I love being Rachel Zane, you know, I love my job, I do yoga, typical Hollywood, whatever. I know people hate the term Hollywood, typical, you know, actress, working actress type of talk, fashion, da da da. There was nothing about humanitarianism, da da da. But okay, this is October 2015. Okay, Suits star Meghan Markle talks self-esteem and surviving Hollywood with the help of her squad. She's not in Hollywood. I have moments where I worry if people are disappointed when they meet the real me versus Rachel. Wow. Okay, so she knows she doesn't live up to her character. Okay. Even Hollywood actresses aren't immune to awkward phases. Consider Meghan Markle, who plays the always impeccably put together Rachel Zane on Suits. Does anyone really wear high heels and pencil skirts that often? Growing up, I was called the nerd. Okay, here we go with the start of all of these things. This is October 2015. I was called the nerd. Bookworm, gap in my teeth, crazy hair, peg legs. Even through high school, I never fully felt as though I fit in, finding myself as a biracial girl teetering between groups, she says. I remember busying myself and being the president of every club, not because I actually wanted to, but because I didn't want to eat alone at lunchtime. This overachiever mask I wore was really just the way I battled feeling displaced. Okay, somehow in 2015 there was a shift in the way that she starts, but it's because this is why. That's why she's trying to help other girls avoid going through the same self-esteem issues. Ahead of the International Day of the Girl this month, Markle, who is also a UN women's advocate, led the Dove Self-Esteem Project in Toronto. So she, who had friends growing up, as we can see from her childhood photos and videos, was prom queen, I believe, was very popular, and was not ugly. Okay, yeah, she was awkward as a kid, but by the time she got to high school, she, you know, got braces, straightened her hair, started doing her makeup. As most people do in their teenage years, they have a little glow up, okay? Because when you're a kid, you're a kid. So, and if your mom is not making you like cute, you're not doing it for yourself as a child, you know what I'm saying? And okay, so the reason why she started this, I was awkward, I was bullied, I was the main character from Mean Girls, eating lunch in the bathroom by myself, because she has to work with girls, and now she's rebranding herself from the hot popular girl to, oh, I was awkward and a nerd and didn't have any friends, and I was biracial, as if she was like mixed in the 1950s, you know? Okay, she talked to us about this role and why we all need to be a little nicer to ourselves. Why do you think it's important to build girl self-esteem? We want our girls to grow up knowing their worth. When they have that sense of confidence and they excel in academics, in relationships, in extracurricular, knowing their value dictates the choices that they make. How did you work through some of your own self-esteem battles? I had amazing teachers in school who would see what I was going through and who bolstered my self-esteem by telling me how valuable I was to each of those clubs, and I was able to then turn them into this guidance and purpose. You mean you gotta glow up, okay? You literally started taking care of your physical appearance. Because if you're ugly, it's not that you're literally ugly, it's literally that you're lacking in self-care a lot of times. It's not that you're physically like repulsive, like you just probably don't wash your face enough and you don't have a hairstyle that suits you and your clothes are just kind of frumpy, okay? Does working in Hollywood sometimes bring out those insecurities? Of course. We are human, and as women, we have to combat societal pressures every day. I often worry that I can't live up to the character people associate me with. Fans see me on the street, and I haven't had 2 hours of hair and makeup, and I'm not in custom-tailored Tom Ford with a team of stylists adjusting me every few moments. Who can live up to that? So yes, I have moments where I worry if people are disappointed when they meet the real me versus Rachel, but I have to remind myself that what we see on TV is aspirational and generally unachievable, even for me, who's actually playing that character. How do you work through it? I regroup and remind myself that who I am has absolutely nothing to do with that character or that image. I'm whole and complete exactly as I am, even when covered in dog hair at the park, walking my pooches with no makeup on. What's the best advice you've ever received about learning to love yourself? Be kind to yourself. Truly, if we treated ourselves as well as we treated are best friends, we could be a million miles ahead of the game. There's this great Georgia O'Keeffe quote that resonates with me. I have already settled it for myself, so flattery and criticism go down the same drain, and I am quite free. Okay, she no longer quotes other people, she steals people's quotes. So back here in 2015, she was actually giving people credit where credit is due. Speaking of best friends, how do yours support you? They're my anchor. My industry, especially, can really rock your sense of normalcy. You can put up a picture on Instagram and in the same span of comments have someone tell you they love you and another that they hate you, tell one that you look fat and the other mention that you're too skinny. It's really nice to come home and call my girlfriends who support me through all of it and tell me the truth. Now that's hashtag squad goals. Okay, that was the interview, right? Right, okay. And so we have 2012 through 2016, and we generally have Meghan not complaining, not being, negative, being chill, everything seems okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And now let's get to Vanity Fair, October 2017. Okay, Meghan Markle wild about Harry. This is when, before the engagement, right? A lot of people didn't know who she was. They got engaged the month after, right? Right. And so I did not know who Meghan Markle was at this point in time. I had no idea who this person was at all. I only found out about her when the engagement happened, like truly, okay? So now we are getting into, she's been happy-go-lucky on Suits. She loves her job. She loves being an actress. She doesn't talk about relationships. She doesn't talk about being married to Trevor. She doesn't talk about Corey. She doesn't talk about any of that. I love to travel. I love to do yoga. And then in her speaking interview, she talks about green juice and the same things, okay? But now here we get to the narrative change. Before in 2015, we had the whole, I have low self-esteem and I have low self-esteem and, da-da-da. And now we get to another narrative shift, okay? Battered by the tabloids, boom. Here we go. Battered by the tabloids to the point where her boyfriend, Prince Harry, issued a statement defending her. Actress and activist Meghan Markle has largely ignored the media storm. And as Markle tells Vanity Fair about her biracial background, her romance, and her hit series Suits, it seems that this 36-year-old American may be just the woman Britain's this 36-year-old American may be just the woman for Britain's iconoclastic royal. Okay. September 6, 2017. Meghan Markle was going to London. She had a week's hiatus before returning to Toronto to film the 100th episodes of Suits, a surprise hit series on the USA Network and now in its 7th season. On a rainy afternoon in June, Markle came to her front door and welcomed me into her home on the quiet tree-lined street in Toronto. Markle was wearing a red knee-length floral dress, Erdem, a designer I've been wearing for years, with her rescue dogs Bogart and Guy wagging their tails beside her. A slim brunette with a slightly freckled, glowing complexion and an upturned nose, she looks like the sun-kissed California girl she's always been. Markle had prepared a lunch of organic greens, a crusty bread to be dipped in olive oil, and pasta tossed with chilies, bought from a little place called Teroni, which they have in LA and Toronto. They're really hot, but if you're good with heat, I think they're going to be your new favorite thing. I'll give you a jar to take home. So she's courting journalists, bringing them into her home, right, at this point, and sending them away with gift baskets. Okay, that's the thing she's been doing at this point, right? And I think this is the first time she's actually done it, and the journalist wrote about it, and it's obviously continued for the most part, because she did that with Alison P. Davis with The Cut, right? Before the whole, I trusted her, I shouldn't have been too trusting, okay? All right. Her warmth is genuine. She seems to be the happy genius of her home of 7 years. 7 Canadian winters, she exclaims about her time filming Suits, a long time for someone who grew up in Southern California. She's tried to make her Canadian house look like a California bungalow, exposing the hardwood floors and letting in as much light as possible. For almost a year, rumors have flown about the romance between the 36-year-old actress and Britain's 33-year-old Prince Harry, the redhead hellraiser, former army captain who had completed 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan, and the all-around favorite royal. If Markle and Prince Harry are indeed headed to the altar, She will be the first American to marry into the royal family since Wallis Simpson famously wed King Edward, forcing his abdication from the throne almost 81 years ago. Hold on, let me fact check this. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, never mind, sorry. Okay, all right. Markle is the calm in the center of the media storm, inspired by her year-long relationship with the prince. The couple met in London through friends in July 2016, Markle says. Since then, media coverage of their romance has been so intense and much of it so unpleasant that Prince Harry was moved to issue a statement asking the press and the public essentially to back off. They haven't. Even Bogart and Guy have become Instagram stars. Markle, new to fame, has handled the hoopla with surprising aplomb. It has its challenges and comes in waves. Some days, it can feel more challenging than others, she says, and right out of the gate, it was surprising the way things changed. But I still have this support system all around me, and of course, my boyfriend's support. While arguably the most popular member of the British royal family, Prince Harry is also the most iconoclastic. He's loved for having been the bad boy in his youth and is now the regular guy of the family for his 10 years of army service, including his time in Afghanistan, the only place he's ever felt normal, he said, and in recent years for his philanthropy on behalf of combat veterans. VF contributing editor Sally Bedell Smith, who wrote a biography of Prince Charles, says, Harry, who could have been the scapegoat sibling, was that for a while. There was the widely released photo of him looking tipsy at a London nightclub. There was a scuffle with a photographer outside another London nightclub at around 3 a.m. that resulted in the photographer's cut lip. There was the colonial and natives costume party of 2005, to which Harry came dressed like a Nazi. Blah, blah, blah. The photo of the prince. How are they calling him the scapegoat prince when that's literally what he did? That's literally what he did. Okay, the public was outraged and Harry apologized. More recently, cell phone pictures of Harry carousing with friends in Las Vegas in 2012 went viral. It was probably a case of classic me being too much army and not enough prince, he later admitted. Okay, Harry. After Harry ended his stint in the army, he focused on veterans issues. In September 2014, he organized the Invictus Games, a charity event for wounded combat veterans named after the 1875 William Ernest Henley poem Schoolboys in England once had to memorize, with the famous lines, I am a master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. When Harry turned 30, he inherited $16 million from the estate of his mother, Princess Diana, and that is when he determined to spend his time and effort supporting veterans with physical and psychological injuries. As Diana's younger son, Harry continues to bask in the public's love for the people's princess. He's been forgiven his occasional wildness, his drift, and acting out of a broken heart that sent him into grief counseling in his late 20s. As the royal favorite, there is a keen interest in and much speculation about the woman he may marry. A rumor floating in cyberspace is that he popped the question last month when they were vacationing in Botswana, and that was actually confirmed by Finding Freedom. If you want me to actually finish that book, because I downloaded it and I tried to read it, but it was so ridiculous that I just got so frustrated and stopped reading it out loud. But if you guys really want me to read it, let me know. Oh, God. Okay, this article. Why are these articles so long with Meghan? Like, once she actually started dating Harry, the articles became so freaking long where they feel like they have to give us the whole backstory of Harry's life and Meghan's life before getting into the meat and potatoes. In the 1957 Marilyn Monroe film The Prince and the Showgirl, a feeding frenzy surrounds a royal and non-royal couplings. Though Markle is extremely pretty and she stars in a TV show, you would never call her a showgirl. She's too serious, too well brought up. And outside of Vegas, who's called a showgirl anymore? Grounded is the word that's often used to describe her. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, a California girl who lives by the ethos that most things can be cured with either yoga, the beach, or a few avocados, she once wrote. Until recently, she maintained a popular lifestyle blog called The Tig. She's a self-described foodie, a passion incidentally given to her character on Suits. I mean, this bread is so good. She enthuses over the delicious meal she's prepared. It's that perfect crunch, and then the softness. They call it the crumb of these little holes. Oh, God, she's so weird. Suits, in which Markle plays an ambitious paralegal turned lawyer Rachel Zane, first brought the actress to wide attention. Before that, she'd briefly appeared in the movies A Lot Like Love and Horrible Bosses and had minor roles on television in the science fiction drama Fringe and the soap General Hospital, among others. I asked the boyishly attractive 36-year-old actor Patrick J. Adams, who plays the likable but fraudulent lawyer Mike Ross, Rachel's love interest on Suits, to describe the series and its popularity. Getting to 100 episodes is pretty surreal, Adams says. I never thought that a story about 6 people working in a law firm in New York would be something that would capture people's interest all over the globe. I was backpacking through New Zealand a couple of years ago and stopped to help a Swedish guy who twisted his ankle. He looked up at me and his eyes went wide, and all he could talk about was how badly he wanted Mike and Rachel to figure things out. I don't believe that story at all. Sorry. Mike Ross's relationship with Rachel Zane is one of those long, simmering teases that take several episodes to come to a boil, but it was clear for their first meeting that they were meant to be together. I think Mike and Rachel are a classic Romeo and Juliet story, Adams believes. They come from totally different sides of the tracks. Rachel has taken the path well-traveled, worked hard, and followed the rules of the game. Mike is a naturally gifted, brilliant guy, but followed exactly none of the rules. When it came to casting Rachel Zane, we needed somebody in the role that was absolutely engageable, relatable, young enough, who's beautiful in a non-traditional way. What? You mean someone just not blonde? Okay. Who had authenticity, says Bonnie Hammer, the chairman of NBC Universal Cable Entertainment Group. Aaron Korsh, the show's creator, recalls that Rachel Zane was particularly challenging to cast because the role required toughness and attitude while still being likable. We all looked at each other after Markle's screen test like, wow, this is the one. I think it's because Meghan has the ability to be smart and sharp without losing her sweetness. When she auditioned for the role, Markle showed up in black jeans, a plum-colored spaghetti strap top, and heels. It suddenly occurred to her that for the screen test, she needed to look a little less casual and more like a lawyer. She dashed into an H&M and bought a little black dress for $35. Sure enough, she was asked to change into the dress, which she hadn't even tried on. Thank God it fit. My parents had been so supportive, she told Vanity Fair, watching me audition, trying to make ends meet, taking all the odd and ends jobs to pay my bills. I was doing calligraphy and I was a hostess at a restaurant and all those things that actors do. My father knew how hard it is for an actor to get work, so he, above all people, was so proud that I was able to beat the odds. She doesn't talk about how she was literally married and her husband was a producer who got her roles. She acts like she was living in a one-bedroom apartment and auditioning. But okay. One of the strongest bonds Prince Harry and Markle share is their philanthropy. For Markle, it began at an early age. Her mother, Doria, made sure that her little girl knew about the greater world and its political and economic challenges when she was growing up in LA. Meghan's father, Thomas, was a successful lighting director in Hollywood, and he lit the sitcom Married with Children for 35 years, General Hospital. Meghan Markle recalled, every day after school for 10 years, I was on the set of Married with Children, which was really funny and perverse place for a little girl in a Catholic school uniform to grow up. Markle says, that's what's so incredible, is that my parents split up when I was 2, but I never saw them fight. We would still take vacations together. My dad would come on Sundays to drop me off, and we'd watch Jeopardy, eating dinner on TV trays, and the three of us were still so close-knit. We were still so close-knit. When she turned 18, she left for Northwestern University, becoming the first person in her family to graduate from college, and double majored in theater and international relations in line with her international relations major. Markle worked at the U.S. Embassy in Argentina her senior year. So I'd been in a completely different world and suddenly jumped into this one. That's literally not true because remember she acted in school, like the school plays or whatever. So she's always been into acting and said her dad would come and light the plays and she would be the star of the plays so that her dad could come and light the plays. What is she talking about? And also, how was she the first person in her family to graduate from college when her sister graduated from college and there's pictures of her at her sister's graduation? Like, what? But okay. Anyways, Markle thinks her social awareness began in the South Central riots in Los Angeles, sparked by the police beating of Rodney King in 1991 and the subsequent riots in 1992 when she was 11 years old. They had us go home from school during the riots and there was ash everywhere. As the ash from the street fires sifted down on suburban lawns, Markle remembers she said, "Oh my God, Mommy, it's snowing." No, Flower, it's not snow, Dory answered. Get in the house. Markle's friends, family, and fellow actors on Suits are respectful of her relationship with Prince Harry, which has come under harsh criticism in the UK tabloids. Tabloids report that Queen Elizabeth will be hesitant to sanction such a match for her grandson, following the ancient rule barring Catholics, commoners, and divorcees. Though not raised Catholic, okay, they're not talking about how the Queen was okay with the Duchess of Kent, I want to say, becoming Catholic. She didn't care. She did not care about that, right? I think it was the Duchess of Kent. Sorry if I'm wrong. Okay, anyways, while not raised Catholic, Markle graduated from a Catholic high school and was married for almost 2 years to producer Trevor Engelson, who is Jewish, and she adds a new wrinkle. Her mother is black, her father is white. Criticism of Markle has been snob-ridden, racist, and uninformed. The trolls have really gone after her. Last November, the Daily Star online announced Prince Harry could marry into gangster royalty. His new love is from a crime-ridden Los Angeles neighborhood. The royal's future mother-in-law still lives in Crenshaw, surrounded by bloodbath robberies and drug-induced violence. So how does Meghan Markle handle the tabloid nonsense about her and Harry? I can tell you at the end of the day, I think it's really simple, she says. We're two people who are really happy and in love. And we were very quietly dating for about 6 months before it became news. And I was working during the whole time. And the only thing that changed was people's perception. Nothing about me changed. I'm still the same person that I am, and I've never defined myself by my relationship. The media frenzy seems to bother the prince more than it does Markle. The official statement issued from Kensington Palace by his communications secretary read in part, Meghan Markle has been subject to a wave of abuse and harassment. Prince Harry is worried about Miss Markle's safety and deeply disappointed that he has not been able to protect her. As for Markle, she prefers what the British call ostriching. She says, I don't read any press. I haven't even read press for Suits. The people who are close to me anchor me in knowing who I am. The rest is noise. That is a lie, because she said that she would actually get the script writers on Suits to change the script, because she said that in the episode where she kissed another guy, the people on Twitter after the episode aired were talking trash about Rachel Zane. And she was... Sorry, guys, I'm getting some water. I'm very thirsty. They were talking trash about Rachel Zane, and then she got worried because she was like, oh my god, they're gonna think I'm like a homewrecker. So she literally got the script writers, she was harassing the script writers to change the script. I think that was in one of those books, okay? One of those books. So she's lying. She's just freaking lying, okay? And how would she know they're saying racist things if she didn't read the press, right? And why doesn't she tell Harry? Why are you even paying attention to it? Stop talking about it. Like, Markle's parents crafted the world around me to make me feel that I wasn't different but special, she wrote in a 2015 essay for Elle. As dolls in the 1980s were generally sold in sets of black and white, they still are. I was born in 1995. I've never seen biracial dolls. Sorry, guys. I personally never walked through the Barbie aisle and seen a black mom and a white dad, or vice versa in the doll thing, and a little mixed doll. I haven't, bro. I haven't. Maybe I haven't been paying attention, but I don't remember seeing that, okay? My mom bought me black dolls. I mean, I'm not biracial, so maybe it was not a thing that I ever had to think about, but what? Anyways, for Christmas one year, her father brought a black mom doll and a white dad doll and a child in each color, and my dad had taken the sets apart and customized my family. Problems began in the 7th grade when she had to complete a mandatory census by checking one of the 4 boxes: black, white, Hispanic, or Asian. The pale, freckled, curly-haired Markle felt she had to choose either white or black would be a rejection of one of her parents. Her teacher told her to check Caucasian because she looked white, but she couldn't. She ended up having to leave the boxes unchecked. I left my identity blank. A question mark, an absolute incomplete, much like how I felt, she once said. So does that mean that she would rather just be white? Or she would rather just be black? She feels that being mixed is just a stain and just an inconvenience because she doesn't fit in, so-called doesn't fit in. Does she not know that black people who are not ghetto don't fit in with black people either, because we're called the whitewashed and Oreos and all that kind of stuff and coconuts? Anyways, because she's light-skinned and has not made an issue of being biracial, though she has embraced it, she's auditioned for white as well as black and Latina roles. There was widespread belief disbelief among viewers in season 2 of Suits when her black father, a high-powered lawyer played by the charismatic actor Wendell Pierce, first appeared on the show. Most people didn't think her character or the actress playing her was biracial. I mean, I don't see a white woman when I see Meghan Markle, but that's just me. It's whatever. One thing Markle noticed about how she was perceived was that almost every photo shoot they would airbrush out her freckles. I've always loved my freckles, she now says. So when she was photographed for Vanity Fair, she was thrilled to work with Peter Lindbergh because he rarely retouches and believes in such little makeup. I gave him a big hug and I said, I'm so excited to work with you because I know we'll finally be able to see my freckles. More important, what does Queen Elizabeth think of the prospect of a marriage between her grandson and the American divorcee? When asked if she thought the Queen opposed the match, she said, this woman, they mentioned her before, Sally Smith, who wrote biographies of Queen Elizabeth, blah, 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 said the stakes are obviously lower because in the case of Harry, because he's now fifth in line to the throne. They have to be concerned. William and Harry will always have a special place because whatever you think of Diana, she has this magical aura that continues. The fact that Harry and William are half Diana, that will never go away. The Queen is remarkably open-minded and very tolerant, Smith observes. William was allowed to cohabit with Kate Middleton, even though she's the daughter of a very middle-class family. The Queen just looked at who Kate was and that she was in love with her grandson, and she knew how to conduct herself with dignity and discretion, and that was the most important thing. I would imagine that the Queen's view of this would be if they're in love and they're well suited, then they should proceed. Bonnie Hammer expressed her concern about Markle's sudden international fame. She isn't somebody who was already a celebrity who had paparazzi tracking her day and night in Hollywood or New York or Toronto. Sheesh! She's going through something that should be the most glorious and open time in her life to be able to share, but because of circumstances, that's very hard. Markle credits the rock-solid support of her close friends for helping to sustain her. The international tennis great Serena Williams is one of those friends. The two met about 7 years ago at the Super Bowl. Her personality just shines, Serena said about Markle, who asked her advice on how to handle some of the more extreme results of fame, such as paparazzi showing up at her house and chasing her. I told her, you've got to be who you are, Meghan. You can't hide. Another close friend is the Bahrain-born fashion designer Misha Nunu. They met in Miami through a mutual friend and immediately bonded. Her greatest strength is her compassion for others, says Nunu. Much of the work she does is unseen by the public. Another close friend is the actress Abigail Spencer, who's been a Suits cast member. When asked why she thinks Harry was drawn to Markle, Spencer says she's got warm elegance, though her style is hard to pin down. It's classy and timeless. When you're talking to her, you feel like you're the only person on the planet, and it's just wonderful to see her so in love. It was raining in Toronto the day we met, and while this sounds corny, it happens to also be true. As she resumed, speaking about Prince Harry, the sun came out, ushering in a brilliant warm day. Markle suggested we move into the small garden behind the house, where she even opened more about the object of her affection, her boyfriend, as she calls the prince. We're a couple, she explains. We're in love. I'm sure there'll be a time where we have to come forward and present ourselves and have stories to tell, but I hope what people will come to understand that this is our time, this is for us. It's just what parts of make it so special, but it's just ours. But we're happy. Personally, I love a great love story. Just before I filed Markle's story, she texted me, going where the Wi-Fi is weak, which turned out to be Botswana, a place Harry first visited 20 years ago, shortly after his mother's death, a place of healing where they celebrated Markle's 36th birthday. Whatever the future of their relationship, one suspects that had she lived long enough to meet Meghan, Diana, beloved for her philanthropy, as much as her shy beauty would have approved. Editor's note. The sentence regarding the first time Markle met Prince Harry has been amended. Markle told Vanity Fair that the couple met in July 2016. Okay, so there's that. So now we have the narrative change of, oh, I was bullied as a kid, I was this, I was that, I was this, and I was that, okay? And then now I'm going to read the cut interview, which was before Her Majesty the Queen died, before the Netflix series dropped, I don't even know if Archetypes had come out yet, but this is when they thought, okay, we're going to be riding high. And this is after the Oprah interview, of course, right? The cut. Meghan of Montecito. She's left the firm behind. Harry's found a polo team in Santa Barbara. The kids are doing great, and now she's ready for her next act. And this is, when was this? August 29th, 2022. Okay. The conditions are right for confession. It's a beautiful August day in Montecito, in a beautiful sitting room, in a beautiful home. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, a lovely 3-year-old with a shock of ginger curls identical to his father's, toddles into the room demanding mama. Listen to his heartbeat with a wooden toy stethoscope. He stands, tummy protruding, while his mother, Meghan, convincingly performs her glee at hearing the thump 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 in his chest. Archie giggles satisfied and toddles right back out again. Meghan, relaxing in a cozy chair, glazes over all that is climate controlled and high ceilinged in a sun dappled and perfectly marshmallowy and hers. Okay. An invisible hand has lit a Soho House branded rosewater candle. The founder, Nick Jones, is a friend from long before I met Harry, she says, and the scent that fills the air, mingling with the gentle tones of a flamenco inflected guitar floating from the speaker. Then, in the lull of conversation, Meghan turns to me and leans forward to ask in a conspiratorial hush, "Do you want to know a secret?" Meghan, silenced no more, looks around, making sure nobody, who would be, is listening in. Then, the top secret drop. "I'm getting back on Instagram," she says, her eyes alight and devilish. Okay, so this was in August of 2022. As we know, she had the Instagram page since July of 2022 and then just relaunched it in 2025. Okay, so she's been on there, all right? This could have been a troll. Delivering a nothing with such gravitas feels as if Meghan, who's been so trolled by the media, is serving it back, just a little. But, as I quickly realized, it's actually news. Before this chapter in her life, before everything difficult had spun off from marrying the Duke of Sussex and, along with him, the British monarchy, she was just Meghan Markle, a woman with a plum role on a USA procedural and moderately popular lifestyle blog, The Tig. As herself, she'd amassed 3 million Instagram followers by sharing snippets of a basic life, yoga, the food she liked, hikes with her friends, her beagle Guy. Fans watched as she attended events with her Suits castmates and charity galas, nights out at Soho House in London and Toronto. She ran that account for years before she met Harry, but on the heels of their engagement, control over her Instagram was just one of the things, along with the Tig, her passport, and the freedom to open her own mail, she gave up. She'd loved sharing her life with people, she says, but she loved Harry more. It was a big adjustment. A huge adjustment to go from that kind of anonymity to a different life. Autonomy, to a different life, says Meghan. Meghan was permitted to join Harry, Kate, and Will on a pre-existing account, Kensington Royal, that she had no control over. There's literally a structure by which if you want to release photos of your child as a member of the family, you first give them to the Royal Rota, the UK press pool, she explains. Usually the photos would be on social outlets before she could post them herself. That didn't sit right with Meghan, given her strained relationship with the British tabloids. Harry's girl is almost straight out of Compton is how the Daily Mail introduced her to the British public, and especially since she would soon have a child of her own. Why would I give the very people who are calling my children the N-word a photo of my child before I can share it with the people that love my child? She says, still ruffled. You tell me how that makes sense, and then I'll play that game. I'm pretty sure she said that in the Oprah interview, but there's no proof that anyone ever called Archie the N-word. That is like so crazy that she even said that, and that's not even a British. That's a 100% American word that was invented in America. Like, they don't have that word in the UK. Like, they did not. That's from here, okay? And slavery. But anyways, in April 2019, 1 month before Archie was born, Meghan and Harry launched their own Instagram handle, Sussex Royal, which reached 1 million followers within 6 hours. On their own account, they refused to play the exchange game. They broke their own news, posting photos that sometimes never even made it to the Royal Rota. Shortly after they stepped back from their royal duties, they shut down Sussex Royal. They could no longer use royal in their branding. Later, in an interview with Fortune, Meghan declared that she wasn't planning on getting back on social media. The constant bullying had been too much. So this This divulgence, This divulgence, in addition to being newsworthy, is a symbol of progress, proof that she and Harry have made it to the other side of all the drama that defined their past 3 years. Especially now with Archetypes coming out, she says, steering the conversation toward the reason she agreed to sit for an interview in the first place. Archetypes, the podcast that Meghan hosts, is the first much-anticipated offering to come from the pair of high-profile deals the couple signed in 2020 with Netflix and Spotify. Each episode features her in conversation with her famous friends, discussing the ways women are unfairly labeled and experienced. Meghan notes she's been through herself and is finally ready to talk about it. Progress, however, is a series of steps forward and steps backwards. Later, Meghan would relay she was actually no longer sure she would actually return to Instagram. Though she's been media trained and then royal media trained and sometimes converses like she has a tiny bachelor producer in her brain directing what she says. At one point in our conversation, instead of answering a question, she will suggest how I might transcribe the noise she's making. She's making these guttural sounds, and I can't quite articulate what it is she's feeling. And in that moment, because she has no word for what for it, she's just moaning. At this stage, post-royal, there's no need for her to hold back. She's flinging open the proverbial doors to her life, as any millennial woman whose feminism was forged in the girl boss era would understand. She's taken a hardship and turned it into content. Meghan's journey from deal or no deal suitcase girl to princess had the makings. She was never a princess, but anyways, she had the makings of a fairy tale, or at the very least a very stellar romance comedy, but it took almost no time to turn into an extraction plot from a mid-90s political thriller. The seemingly storybook wedding was followed by a year of clandestine conversations with a 1,200-year-old institution dubbed the Firm, during which the couple asked for help in revealing Meghan's declining mental health. When those talks went nowhere, there were even more clandestine conversations with a network of rich and powerful friends that led to an escape on Vancouver Island for a 6-week holiday that turned into something far more permanent. It was from there the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan, made a surprise announcement that they would be stepping back from their roles as senior members of the royal family in an Instagram post so full of hidden context and meaning that MI6 could use it for message decoding training. Their accepted exit terms, or Megxit, the term the papers favored even though Harry declared it misogynistic, stipulated that the couple would no longer make appearances on behalf of the Queen, would no longer be permitted to use the HRH designation, which they've broke multiple times, would make their own money, though Prince Charles provided some financial assistance for the first year. They were left sans public funding to bankroll both their lives and the security that protected those lives. In the press, that just leaked the location of the coastal home they're staying in. By March 2020, the pandemic was underway, and there was talk of the Canadian-U.S. border closing. They could see the men on boats watching them from the water. Though Meghan had never met Tyler Perry in person, he had reached out when she and Meghan got married to tell her that he was praying for her and that he understood what this meant. Meghan recalls, referring to the symbolic weight of their wedding, and that he could only imagine what it was like. And he also told Meghan that if she ever needed support or advice, to call if she ever needed support or advice. It took her a long time to do so, she admits, but once she did, because she had no need for Tyler Perry when she was riding high in the UK. Why would she talk to a film producer while she's riding high in the UK? She didn't need to do that, okay? But when she did, she found herself telling him every detail of their situation in Canada. Sometimes you can tell your life story to a stranger on a plane as opposed to some of the people that are closest to you, she says. It's because he literally offered one of his jets. And in a plot twist I may never get over, Perry offered one of his homes, a literal safe house in Beverly Hills, complete with security detail, and became in many ways the reason that Meghan and Harry started their new life in Southern California. But she had already covered all of this in the interview for Oprah. She reminds me with a firm smile and wave of her hand that signals that it's time to move on. In March 2021, I'm not going to talk about the Oprah interview, all right? My first glimpse of Meghan in this new chapter is her crouched in the entryway, arms wrapped around her black Labrador Paula. The front doors are thrown wide open, as are the doors leading out to the backyard. She stands and smiles with the perfect level of warmth, the gleam of her teeth revealed only by the shininess of her blowout, backlit by the late morning light in a scene that looks like Nancy Meyer's cinematic interior. Town and Country, Goop, and Architectural Digest had an orgy and created the perfect moment in California living. She throws her arms wide open, too, and gives me a hug. "Come on through," she says, beckoning me to join her on one of her many terraces. That's so funny that, like, Allison literally nailed it. That it's Town and Country, Goop, Architectural Digest. The house is so curated, it looks fake, okay? Basically. It looks staged, completely staged. The Montecito house is the kind of big that startles you into remembering that unimaginable wealth is actually someone's daily reality. It evokes a classic Tuscan villa, a Napa vineyard, and a manicured Beverly Hills country club decorated with careful, considered coastal tones for casual air. The home equivalent of billionaires dressing down in denim. Finding a house to start their new life wasn't easy, Meghan tells me. We were looking in this area. She refers to Montecito, the Tony beachside hamlet of north of Los Angeles, and this house kept popping up in online searches. At first, they'd resisted going to visit. We didn't have jobs. They still don't have jobs. So we were just not going to come and see this house. It wasn't possible. It's like when I was younger and you're window shopping and it's like, I don't want to go and look at all the things I can't afford. That doesn't feel good. How utterly humbled we all are when confronted with a depressingly aspirational Zillow hunt. They did eventually tour it and fell almost immediately in love, and since they have income now in the form of a reported $25 million Spotify deal and a reported $100 million Netflix deal. It's within their means. Meghan stops to point out two massive Dr. Seussian palm trees dead center on the lawn. So verdant, it's better not to consider the water bill. One of the first things that my husband saw when we walked around the house was these two palm trees, she coos. And see how they're connected at the bottom? He goes, my love, it's us. And now every day when Archie goes by, he says, hi, Mama, hi, Papa, talking to the trees. Jesus Christ of Nazareth. They had toured only the grounds when they told the real estate agent, we have to get this house, Meghan says. It didn't matter that they hadn't seen the inside. Meghan gestures to the sweep of the property. From chicken coop to pool to main house. Eventually they purchased it for $14.65 million. We did everything we could to get this house. She leans her head back and lets the sun beam down into her pores. Because you walk in and you go, she takes a deep inhale through her mouth and through her nose and breathes out her mouth. Joy and exhale and calm is healing. You feel free. Even if she and Harry have stepped back from their royal duties, Meghan is still very aware that people see her as a princess. She's not a princess, and she was never a princess. And even if they lose the Duke and Duchess title, she's going to be known as Princess Henry. Her husband is the prince, and even Harry can become Henry Mountbatten Windsor, just like his uncle, okay? It's important to be thoughtful about it because even with the Oprah interview, I was conscious of the fact that there are little girls I meet and they're like, oh my God, it's a real life princess. I don't think any child on earth knows who Meghan Markle even is. They don't know who that is. She's not in the public consciousness except for people who actually pay attention to the royal saga. Like, no one is thinking about her except for like her actual fans and like Megxit. But other than that, no one is like, we're not aware of her like Britney Spears, okay? Or Rihanna or somebody like that who's actually culturally relevant, you know? But her ambitions for herself and the little girls who look up to her are more than to marry into a position. Yeah, right. I just look at all of them and think, you have the power within you to create a life greater than any fairy tale you've ever lived. And I don't mean that in terms of you can marry a prince one day. I mean, you can find love. You can find happiness. You can be up against what you could feel like the greatest obstacle and you can find happiness again. Meghan's Harry, or H as she calls him in anecdotes, or my love as she refers to him when he's standing in front of her, or how he is now in navy blue athletic shorts, a t-shirt and no shoes, and has appeared from somewhere in the house to say hello. I stand up instantly, understanding the confusion Meghan must have felt when she first met the royal family. Am I supposed to shake his hand, or bow, or curtsy, or salute? Do I call him Prince Harry, the royal family known as Prince, ex-Prince Harry, the Duke, Sir, Mr.? Wait, does he have a last name? As if to preempt any mistakes I might make at curtsying, Harry extends his hand to shake mine and welcomes me into their home. Okay, well, I mean, you can still shake hands and curtsy if you feel that you, like, I've seen people shake hands and curtsy at the same time, but anyways, it's very beautiful I assure him, not calling him anything at all. We're fixing all these things, the pipes, but that's a whole story within itself. Harry explains, exasperated. So they bought a house that they needed to do a major fix upon. That's why it sold for so cheap, okay? The day before, while Meghan was on the photo shoot for this issue, Harry had been left to his own devices, and he tells me, you were gone for like 10 hours yesterday, he marvels to his wife. Tell her the first thing you said when you got back last night, he says, turning to me. She said, I'm not a model. I was like, no, you are. Of course you can be a model. And she's like, I'm a mom. And it's like, you can be both, Harry says, earning himself so many points. Jesus. Like, what? In October 2020, the couple launched Archewell, a catch-all company for their post-royal pursuits. Thus far, it has 3 divisions, a non-profit that puts compassion into action, according to the website Archewell Productions, which oversees the Netflix deal, and Archewell Audio, that oversees the Spotify deal. The two run Archewell from their shared home office, specifically from 2 plush club chairs that place side by side behind a single desk facing the room like thrones. Most people that I know, and many of my family, they aren't able to work and live together, Harry says, passing as I take a peek at their command center. He enunciates family with the vocal eye roll. It's actually really weird because it seemed like a lot of pressure, but it just feels natural and normal. The week I visit, things at Archewell are particularly busy. In addition to a trip to Africa for Harry on behalf of the charity African Parks. Meghan is launching Archetypes, which aired its first episode on Spotify August 23rd. There's also another trip in the works on which they'll both speak at a handful of charity events in the UK and Germany, including one for the lead up to the Invictus Games, an athletic tournament for wounded veterans Harry founded in 2014. After all the drama, it looks like they designed the exact job they wanted to have as royals, but were denied. How so? Because they were doing that exact thing when they were royals. How were they denied? They were not denied that. But she means that they wanted to do all that and plus monetize the royal titles? Okay. I think we always knew the first years of creating this life from scratch was going to be the busiest, Harry says. Well, it's a startup, Meghan interjects. We are building a business during lockdown. And then Harry interjects with everyone weighing in. If you do something, they criticize you. But if you don't do anything, they criticize you anyway. It's a lot, but... Oh, and having a baby in the middle of it, Meghan casually jokes. Their daughter, Lily, was born June 2021. So far, there's been little consumable content out of Archewell. The first announced project was a behind-the-scenes docuseries about the Invictus Games, which has yet to see daylight. Meghan has been working on Pearl, an animated series about a 12-year-old girl who steps into her own power by traveling through time to meet important women across history when Netflix axed it. There's not much you can do when a company and a division changes their slate, she says. And there's also not much you can do when, even if they think the project is great, the media will report it as though it was only my project. Meanwhile, Archewell has a leadership change as the company moves forward. According to reports in the LA Times, there's an air of impatience around that Netflix documentary, and specifically around what the couple is going to produce in general. Attempts to learn what those other projects might be or what their plans are met with institutional paranoia by a team that responds to press inquiries as if it's protecting nuclear codes. Contact with non-approved employees invites fear and suspicion, confrontation. Questions about rumored projects, for example, and At Home with Meghan and Harry type docuseries that reportedly has an attached director, Liz Garbus, and footage shot by teams of cameramen who've been spotted following the couple around are met with half answers shrouded in winks, codes, and redirection. Meghan herself gives an effortless, arms wide open, relatable affectation. She dangles the glimpse behind the curtain while the machine in place around her slams the door. The couple has directly smashed rumors of a reality show. Well, that was a lie because they filmed 2 of them. Both in statements made to publications and in conversation with me. But Meghan explains there's a difference between a historical documentary and a reality docuseries. The piece of my life I haven't been able to share, that people haven't been able to see, is our love story, she says. Then quotes what she says was the end of a speech she gave at her wedding, in which she took comfort in the resounding knowing that above all, love wins. She adds, I hope that the sentiment that people feel when they see any of the content or the projects we're working on. I ask again if they're currently filming a documentary about their love story. What's so funny is that I'm not trying to be cagey, she says. I don't read any press, so I don't know what's confirmed. What the hell does that mean? You already filmed it. Okay, anyways, I will tell you that Liz Garbus is incredible. Liz also worked on Pearl. Meghan said she's going to leave it to her publicist and Netflix to decide what can be shared. Not much. As for the rest of the project, she explains, when the media has shaped the story around you, it's really nice to be able to tell your own story. Your eye contact is good, she says suddenly. You're like looking into my soul. I stammer out an apology. I feel it. It's good. I'm like so excited to talk. Meghan was born and bred in LA, and her mother, social worker Doria, she's no longer a yoga instructor, she's now a social worker. Doria lives close enough that she can visit regularly, so she lives in Montecito, involved in grandma duty. I ask if Harry feels isolated without any family nearby. Well, look, we're both building community, she responds. I didn't have friends up here. Ooh, okay. In addition to being new people in the place, they moved in during COVID when everyone was isolated. They're creating a new thing together. Meghan launches into a little story. Right now, they're trying to teach Archie his manners. We always tell him, manners make the man. Manners, 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 manners. Okay, why are you telling a 4-year-old this? Like, what does a 4-year-old know about manners? Nothing, okay? Meghan remembered something she learned at a young age from a friend's mom. Salt and pepper are always passed together. Not really. I may want pepper on my food and no salt, but okay. She said, you never move one without the other. That's me and Harry. We're like salt and pepper. We always move together. These days, they're getting back out there together. Recently, Meghan says they took Archie to a birthday party for a classmate, and everyone was surprised when they showed up. I was in a bouncy castle. I saw this 1-year-old inside. I was like, where's your mom? And this mom, what? Okay. And this mom on the outside goes, oh, hi, I'm here. I wasn't sure if I should come in. She laughs. I was like, hi, do you need your child? of course you can come in. Harry plays polo with the Los Padres in Santa Barbara. They spend time with a close-knit group of friends who have lunch and dinner at one another's homes, including former makeup artist and entrepreneur Victoria Jackson. No mention of Daniel Martin, who's become a close friend and safe harbor. They met through another friend, Gloria Steinman. Jackson invented no makeup, makeup, and made a fortune selling her products on QVC in the 80s, and has a sprawling ranch near Santa Barbara that she lent to Meghan for the photo shoot. Meghan had celebrated her 41st birthday there in August. The kids have been over to pet Jackson's mini pigs. Harry once fixed one of her sprinklers. Where the hell did he learn how to fix a sprinkler? And of course, Jackson is telling her story on an upcoming episode of Archetypes. I just want to genuinely show up for them, Jackson says, of why she opened up her home to Meghan so freely. To be able to get them out of their house because it's so complicated for them to go anywhere. You know what I mean? I want Harry to be able to come here for their birthday or share a time and people to know I'm not telling anyone they're here. So I want to keep it that way. So don't give out my address. She laughs and sighs. I hope that people take their foot off the gas a little bit on all the negative spin because they're really good people. There's nothing that affirms a right place contentedness more than a trip to the place you felt that you had to leave. In June, the couple attended some of the events for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in London. It was their first time appearing at a public event alongside the rest of the royal family since they left. While there, Meghan had quietly seen to more personal matters, slipping back to their former residence, Frogmore Cottage, to pack up their belongings. The cottage is still theirs and has remained mostly untouched since they left. And you go back and you open drawers and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I was writing in my journal here. And there's all my socks from this time. The blue and white linen pants she's actually wearing today were something from the cottage. They're like $30 pants from Bowden, and I brought them back. It was surreal to walk back into the life she'd been building in that cottage. There were all these things that she'd shipped from her old apartment in Toronto and had barely gotten to unpack. That's literally a lie because all her stuff was in the storage. They said that all her stuff was in the storage in Toronto. She never brought it to England. Her sofa, posters of art she'd collected. And that's a lie because Harry said that they bought sofas from IKEA on Meghan's credit card. So her sofas did not come from Toronto, okay? Shipped from her old apartment in Toronto, she'd barely gotten to unpack her sofas, posters of art she'd collected traveling with her girlfriends, thrown into good old IKEA frames, a past message from a single self she hadn't fully wanted to leave behind, and there was no message because she was literally dating Corey Vitiello and living with him, okay? All right, the home renovations had been a sore point for the couple for the British tabloids. They'd been criticizing for using an exorbitant amount of taxpayer funds, £2.4 million, aka $3.2 million, for upgrades on a home they'd been given. Public funding of the royal family is a conflict as old as the Queen Mary bandeau tiara Meghan wore on her wedding day. Headline after headline suggested the renovations were more extravagant than they actually were. There was never, for instance, a yoga studio with a floating floor, never a gold bathtub or a copper bathtub. There wasn't a special wing for her mother. How do you know that? It was bittersweet, you know, knowing none of it had to be this way, Meghan says. How did it get so hard? She tried to play royal. I was an actress, she says. My entire job was tell me where to stand, tell me what to say, tell me how to say it, tell me what to wear, and I'll do it. And I'll show up early, and I'll probably bake something for the crew. Every movie about an American woman who ends up becoming a princess has a pivotal scene in where she thinks she's doing the job correctly by just being herself, and then some older royal gives her a speech about duty and decorum. I cite specifically The Prince and Me. She hasn't seen it. Yeah, she has. We know she has. Okay, she's seen The Princess Diaries, right? Yeah, that would have been really helpful. That would have been a really key tutorial to have in advance of all this, she says, not quite sarcastically, but the delivery is a sentence with a steel rod in it. By her own analysis, her problem stemmed from being an American, not necessarily a black American, she explains. Her desire to ask a lot of questions and to never be involved with something she couldn't totally have her hands on seemed to violate an unspoken societal norm. Well, she had her hands on it because she married into the royal family. What? The reporting of the renovations was just part of the abusive press coverage, the source of headlines and allegedly true stories. The allegedly true items that led to the decline in her mental health, but she said she doesn't read it. What do you mean? The couple figured that if the tabloids felt free to attack them under the guise of public interest because their lives were taxpayer funded, then they should just remove the taxpayer funding from the equation, she says. This is just to the firm that they be allowed to work on behalf of the monarchy and make their own money. Then maybe all this noise would stop, Meghan says of their reasoning. But also, how is that possible? Because she said she does not read the press. She doesn't know what the press has been saying. She doesn't read anything. So why would it make her mentally unhealthy? That doesn't make any sense. How can something make you mentally unhealthy if you don't partake of it? If I don't smoke cigarettes and no one in my house smokes cigarettes, how can I say secondhand smoke is giving me lung cancer when I don't smoke cigarettes and no one in my household does, and I'm not exposed to secondhand smoke? That doesn't make any sense. They also thought it would be best to leave the UK, and the UK press to do it. They are willing to go basically anywhere in the Commonwealth, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, anywhere. That's a lie. Anything to just, because by just existing, we were upsetting the dynamic of the hierarchy. So we just go, okay, fine, let's just get out of here. Happy to. She says, her hands up in mock defeat. Meghan asserts that what they were asking for wasn't reinventing the wheel, and list a handful of princes and princesses who have the very arrangement they wanted. Who? Like who? Like who? Like who? Like who? That, for whatever reason, isn't something we were allowed to do, even though several other members of the family do the exact thing. Why do you think that is, I ask? Why do you think that is? She says right back, with a side eye that suggests that I should understand without being told. All right, Meghan, I'll bite. It could be the very reasons why she was considered a breath of fresh air at first, and then a supernova, biracial divorcee, self-made millionaire, clothes horse, only highlighted in the ways in which the monarchy was becoming relevant by the younger generation, and worse, it was because it was deeply flawed and racist. To that, it could be that she's black. Well, she's not black, but anyways. Or perhaps it's owed to the fact that Meghan, who jokes even my blood type is A positive, wouldn't relinquish control over her own image, and that image had potential to be too big for a brand. Maybe, as Harry battled on her behalf with the tabloids, one stern statement after the other, that it was becoming too eerily reminiscent of Princess Diana. Or maybe it's because by the time she met and married Harry, she was already a fully formed American woman, self-made, self-refined. She had desires and goals and a fan base, and while she was a fine actress, the job she is best at is envisioning a life for herself and getting it. That specific type of American ambition just isn't really compatible with being a princess, which she never was and never will be. Though it is compatible with her current life, which seems to be the best of all worlds, a palace in a better climate, and still culturally considered a royal while having the freedom of the royal family. So she wanted half in and half out. A level of celebrity that exceeds what she could have gotten through Suits at the Tig. Oh, a neighbor with mini pigs. Well, I can't put words in your mouth, I just say. And then a pause as she looks down and expects her hands. The bachelor producer in her head deliberates how much should be said. I don't know, she says, casting a knowing gaze out into the middle distance. Though it wasn't the first project, Meghan is happy for the podcast to be her reintroduction. It's so real, she says. I feel different. I feel clearer. It feels like I'm not finding my voice. I had a voice for a long time, but being able to use it. At its heart, archetypes, the slogan, don't believe the hype, is Meghan's way of grappling with the questions that have plagued her personally. Why certain women get saddled with labels, why they stick long after they've been proved untrue. The first episode, which debuted at #1 on Spotify, is a chat with her friend Serena Williams about ambition. They talk about Williams' recent retirement announcement and how Meghan never thought that being ambitious was a bad thing until she started dating Harry. It's a conversation that hovers between candid or planned it. The rest of the episodes she'll dig into labels like old maid, dragon lady, bimbo, the crazy, the angry black woman, the B word. She clarifies and then squeals, ooh, I don't want to say that word, it makes me so uncomfortable. SLUT, will Meghan say SLUT? Oh my gosh, that word makes me so uncomfortable. She is lined up a murderer's row of guests. Constance Wu, Issa Rae, Lisa Ling, Margaret Cho, and Ziwei. I'll let you guess who aligns with which archetype, meaning it's obvious. In her own life, Meghan's response to being typecast seems to be to lean into all the positive things her story symbolizes. She realizes what her ascent meant to Black Britons, for whom she's a sign of progress, and to women for whom she's a working mom and a signal boost that to the issues that affect them. Paid parental leave, equal pay. Even though she avoids reading her own press, which is a lie, Meghan knows people see her this way. She recalls the moment from the 2019 premiere of the live-action version of The Lion King. I just had Archie. It was such a cruel chapter. I was scared to go out. A cast member from South Africa pulled her aside. He looked right at me, and he's just like light. And he says, I just need you to know, when you married into this family, we rejoiced in the streets the same way she did when Mandela was freed from prison. Of course, she knows she's no Mandela, but perhaps even telling me this story is a mode of defense, because if you're a symbol for all things good and charitable, how can anyone find you objectable? How can anybody hate you? The result of always trying to do and say the right thing is the impression she's constantly policing herself. And in a meta twist, I find myself worrying that the words I write about her will be misinterpreted and dissected, rudely, maliciously too. In October 2021, the company Bot Centennial released a study that found that not only the press around Meghan was disproportionately negative, but 70% of hateful posts about her came from 83 accounts that reached up to 17 million Twitter users. Okay, well, the press coverage about Trump is 94% negative, and how many companies are news companies, and how many people run those news companies, right? They're all owned by the same company. So, okay. I wonder if she's relieved by any of this. After being gaslit, she at last had proof that she'd been harassed. And also, it was just a small group of people. It didn't really matter what she did. She'd still have elicited this hatred, and there has to be some freedom in that. Somehow, Archie knows that his mother is at the gate of his preschool before the teacher even throws it open to set him free. He's so excited to see her repeating, "Mama, mama, mama," in this little voice as he runs forward and toward her, and he leaves his lunchbox behind on the ground. The lunchbox that she says she puts kale pasta in. And she scoops him up in a hug so big, full of genuine emotion, that both close their eyes. Meghan grew up very close to her father, Thomas, a retired lighting director who gave Meghan her Hollywood bug, but she's been estranged from him, especially since the wedding. Basically, since the wedding. He was not in attendance. And every miserable fissure in their former bonds has been publicized often by him. After the wedding, the Mail on Sunday leaked a heartfelt letter Meghan wrote to her father begging him to stop speaking to reporters. Meghan sued for invasion of privacy and won, though the defense mounted against her painted her as calculating and manipulative. When I ask about it, Meghan doesn't stay in her sadness for long. Instead, she uses it to discuss how toxic tabloid culture has torn two families apart. Harry says to me, "I lost my dad in this process." It doesn't have to be the same for them as it was for me, but that's his decision. The car ride back to their house is busy, dictated by the whims of conversational patterns of a toddler. Archie, munching on a quesadilla, wants to roll the window down himself, but not until we get to a specific huge hedge he mysteriously favors. We assess if he had a good day at school via an update letter from his teacher. He did, and is ready for full days. And try to figure out if he ate a sandwich at lunch. He did not. We solved the question of the mid-morning shirt change they played in the water table. "Why are you afraid of heights like an airplane?" Archie asks, and that leads to a conversation about the importance of being brave. If he forgets to say please or thank you, Meghan reminds him of the manners that make the man. At a stoplight, she reaches into the trunk and produces a brand new black backpack and hands it to her security detail to give to an unhoused man on the corner. In Montecito? Okay, anyways, they're teaching Archie that some people live in houses, some big, small, and some are between homes. They made kids to pass out with water and peanut butter crackers and granola bars. I ate one, Archie contributes. Why would Meghan let him do that? Okay. Earlier in our conversation about goals for the life she's creating here, she remarked upon how if Archie were in school in the UK, she'd never be able to do a school pickup and drop off without it being a royal photo call. That's literally a lie, because do we see George and Charlotte and Louis going to school every single day? No, we don't. With a press pen of 40 people snapping pictures. Sorry, I have a problem with that. That doesn't make me obsessed with privacy. That makes me a strong and good enough parent protecting my child, Meghan says. For now, even though the two Montecito moms waiting in front of the school stop mid-chat to do a double take, Archie's just a cheerful kid who brings they do a double take because she's never at the school. She does not. She's never there. Ever. Archie's just a cheerful kid who brings a week worth of freshly picked fruit for his fellow classmates and enjoys playing a roaring game at recess. We pull up to the house and Archie leaps out. Harry's ending a phone call as Archie throws himself around his legs. Lily, unsmiling with watchful bright blue eyes, is brought out by her nanny. She's small and also ginger, and there's a small person in the room not smiling. And when there is a small person in a room not smiling, it is a reflex to do anything to entertain them. Harry starts dancing to his own beatboxing, and Meghan bends down and joins in, and then I find myself doing it too until she gives a lopsided smile, and we all realize it's a bit strange to be bonding in this way. We ended the visit in her sitting room, and there's a massive grand piano Tyler Perry gifted her as a housewarming present. "Write the soundtrack for your life," he told them. They don't play any instruments. "It's interesting. I've never had to sign anything that restricts me from talking," she revealed, because who makes your family sign a freaking NDA? And she ushers me toward the door. I can talk about my whole experience and make the choice not to. Why doesn't she talk? Still healing, she responds. I wonder if, given all she's put behind her now, she thinks there's room for forgiveness between her and her royal in-laws and her own family. I think forgiveness is really important. It takes a lot more energy to not forgive, she says wisely, but it takes a lot of effort to forgive. I really made an active effort, especially knowing that I can say anything, she smiles, her voice full of meaning. She's then silent. She breathes in and breathes out some more, and says, I have a lot to say until I don't. Do you like that? Sometimes, they say. This the silent part is still part of the song. Then, quickly and decisively, as if it were my idea, the conversation ends. Meghan sets a Harvard basket in my arms, a cornucopia of fruit and vegetables from the garden, and a jar of jam from the Lily Bunny Garden and larder. She had the labels made on Etsy. She smiles and waves as I make my way out the door, wondering if somehow I'd missed everything she was trying to say. This is exactly like how right now in the Harper's Bazaar article, the woman says that Meghan is talking about whatever the hell she's talking about, and then she leaves, and then she turns around and Meghan has already moved on to the next thing. So now we see the evolution in Meghan's interviewing style, how she goes from, I love my job, everything is great, to I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. And now 5 years later, she's still doing the same exact interviews. Thank you guys so much for listening to this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.